Not that we stick to too rigid of a format on the page, but this one's kind of really going off into uncharted territory. If you're used to the bare knuckle stuff and the 7-string reviews and high gain amps, this isn't it. This is a tricone resonator Dobro. Okay, this is a National guitar, and yes, it is made out of metal. Inside, underneath this section, we basically have, I guess what you'd call an organic or a natural speaker system, where you have this metal disc and you have this wooden speaker diaphragm set inside another piece underneath that actually acts as a projection system. And basically these came out right getting close to about the time when we started having electric guitars, so there kind of wasn't a need for them. But they have a really cool sound, and there's nothing else like them. So let's play it a little bit for you, show you the guitar. That's the kind of stuff I would think you'd expect to hear on this guitar. Very interesting sound to it. It almost has like a natural overdrive to it, but not like in a modern distorted way, but it has this edginess. It just has this sort of, I don't know, grittiness to it that's kind of cool. So yeah, and believe it or not, I actually did take 2 years of acoustic fingerpicking. Whoa, yeah, go metal. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to show you guys some different sounds. And it's funny for me because usually when I'm doing these reviews, we're going through different channels of an amplifier, different pickups. We got none of that going on here. This is just a straight up acoustic instrument. And by the way, if you're wondering, I did purposely leave this gunk all over the guitar because when I was a kid, this was my dad's primary guitar. He played out all the time with this thing, and he would duct tape this pickup and the controls for it to the body of the guitar. And we'll show you more of it, but it has this super rad sandblasted palm tree scene both on the front and back. But man, I told him, I said, before he brought it up to me, I said, leave the duct tape on. I want you to leave the duct tape because it just reminds me of being a kid. Because as part of my chores for the house, I had to change my dad's guitar strings before every gig that he had. And I kind of forgot about that until I thought of needing to do a review of this guitar. So I'm going to kind of just keep playing some stuff. And if you guys ever have any questions about this guitar, please let me know. And in a minute I'm going to go into a little more history about acoustic instruments. So keep playing here a little bit. That's my favorite song that my dad's ever written, and he's got this, you know, rack, and he plays harmonica, and he sings, and he does all this stuff that I don't do, and it doesn't sound like that song to me unless it's on this Dobro, and it's just so cool. And basically, my dad had taken me to this guitar camp in Pomeroy, Ohio, and it's run by Jorma Kaukonen of the Jefferson Airplane. It's called the Fur Piece Ranch. If you guys are into studying guitar playing, you like hanging out with other guitar players, you love learning and being in an awesome environment. There's just not a cooler thing to do on the planet. They have like 4-star chefs on staff in the middle of the woods, and you get these cool little individual cabins. And anyway, it was like the coolest experience for me. But we got to take lessons from these great players and hear these awesome stories. And we had an instructor named Roy Bookbinder. Okay, he's an acoustic finger-picking guitar player. And when he was growing up, he got to study with the Reverend Gary Davis, this blind acoustic finger-picking guitar player. And there's a story about Reverend Gary Davis was in a sandbox when he was a kid. And back then, this is way before the internet, this is before Guitar Center, this is before whatever. They're out in the country, and these guys would come into town, and they would have these guitars strung over their backs, right? They'd have like 5 or 6 acoustic guitars, and they would walk into these towns singing and playing, okay? And they would attract people with their performances, and they'd come over and they would sell them guitars. Now, you had all these like sharecroppers, former slaves, people that grew up in churches singing with the gospel choirs, whatever, and you couldn't go online and download music. There was no radios, you know, stuff like that. And so these people, their only familiarity with music at all was from direct personal experience. Singing out in the field, singing in church, singing with family, whatever. And again, forget about an electronic digital guitar tuner, right? Forget about any standards at all. So what these guys would do is, they'd buy these guitars, strung over somebody's back. Reverend Gary Davis convinced his mom to buy him one of these guitars. You'd get it home. It was completely up to you to figure out how to tune it and how to play the music you heard in your head. So even if you got 100 guys that all know exactly how Amazing Grace sounds and they all think it sounds the same to them, they're going to tune their guitars 100 different ways and figure out 100 different ways to finger the chords that they think are correct. And you ended up with all these very naturally diverse players. And now that everything's standardized, everybody can go on Harmony Central or Tabit or whatever website that they use. Everybody's learning the same songs the same way, the same tunings, the same guitars. Everybody plays either a Les Paul or a Strat. Everything's watered down and it's the same. And so from a young age, I was taught how important it is to find yourself on your instrument. And I just wanted to pass it on to you guys because I think that's such a cool thing to think about. So we're going to play this guitar a little bit more in a minute, but I want to show it to you now under the lights. Okay guys, so we're going to start with the back of the guitar because I really think that's just such a focal point of the instrument itself. But again, you can see this, excuse me, this island scene sandblasted into the back of this metal guitar. And I know I keep knocking on it, but I'll do it again just to really reiterate. I mean, it's a hunk of metal. And also to tell you this, I don't think the guitar, to me, seems any heavier than a decent Les Paul. Honestly, my Zebrawood 7-string is definitely heavier. You got these classic style open tuning machines here with the, you know, the open peg head for the traditional style tuning machines. And you can see this this carve on the neck here. And it's sort of a big neck, but it's definitely not humongous. I would say even like a 59 rounded Les Paul style is gonna be bigger to me. I think it seems like it, but it's definitely sort of more squared. And I'm guessing that's so it's really easy for slide players to use, which it is. And that's another thing that maybe we'll have to get into at some point. But we're gonna go ahead and turn it over. Before I do, you can see on the side, there is sandblasting around the edges that kind of does this sweet looking binding. And like I said, I haven't cleaned this thing up. I'm just leaving it just how my dad handed it to me. And you can see that there is some more sandblasting work on the top. And as I'm talking, you see that? You can hear the tricone resonator resonate underneath there. And that's what it does. It's a natural amplification system. And again, this was developed before anybody ever thought that we would have electronic guitar pickups and amplifiers. So that was a solution for making an acoustic instrument much louder than it would be if it was made of just wood. And there we got the National logo up top. There are F-holes on the guitar as well as the resonator itself. And then I'm going to hop over here to the side, and I hope you can see this. And if you can, I'll try to get it from another angle. There's this really cool thing going on with the binding, and I don't want to call it a scalloped look. I don't know exactly what you'd call it. I'm going to spin around to the other side of the guitar. Maybe we can see it a little bit better from here. And I'm leaning on no. I think with these lights it's probably blown out, but there's this really gnarly ribbed look to the binding, and it's really going to break my heart if this doesn't come up at all in the video, and it looks like it isn't. But if it is, great. I'm really glad if you guys can see that at all. And I apologize, it's really tough to see under these lights. Maybe if we come down a little farther. I know this is getting drug out. Yeah, maybe not. Anyway, so that's a good look at the guitar itself. Let's get back to a little more talking, a little more playing. So I kind of want to show you guys before. I mean, obviously, acoustic guitar is inherently more rhythmic based than electronic guitar playing would be if you're playing lead in a band. You know, playing single notes all day long with an acoustic guitar really isn't an option. With electric guitar, you have all this distortion throwing all this sound. You can use phaser pedals and chorus and delay and on and on and on and on. And really bulk up your sound. And with an acoustic, if you're not used to thinking in terms of chords, okay, you're really going to run into trouble. And I don't pretend for a second to be that fluid of a player. I mean, there's guys that are playing guitar solos where they're using basically all triads, and that stuff sounds just awesome. And I hope to get there, but if you think you're going to pick up an acoustic guitar and just wail on it, you're going to sound pretty thin pretty quick. So I'm going to stick to chords. I'm going to show you one more little thing that we learned out of the guitar camp. It's just kind of neat and sort of easy, and it's one of those things where it's kind of like riding a bike, where if you look at it, you'd think, oh, there's nothing to that, that'd be so easy. And you sit down and you start doing it, and you start falling all over yourself, and you're like, holy cow. And I'll show you what I'm talking about there. So we have this alternating picking thing. We got this song. This alternate picking with this little lead on the B string. I remember the night that I was learning how to do that, and I couldn't even think while I was doing it. Now I can actually talk a little bit, but it's tricky, especially when you're just starting. Okay, so there's that. And this is a one-off. I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to embarrass myself, but just so you can hear how loud this thing is against a voice or whatever. Like, you could pretty much go out and play this thing with very little miking, if any at all, like in a cafe or whatever. And I'll just show you a little bit about what I'm talking about there. You can definitely get some volume out of it, sing along, and it's pretty freaking loud, which is pretty freaking cool. So, we'll kind of keep it short today for once, which I thought is a break for both of us. If you guys have more questions, let me know, and I'm going to keep trying to get more and more and more interesting pieces on Guitargear1. So please subscribe and come back and see what I come up with. So, thanks guys.